Let's talk about your past influences. Who got you into the movie industry? Where did it all start for you? Who was the biggest influence on your life back in the early days, Michele?
Wow. Well, I actually started as an actress when I was a kid. I was modeling and acting, and it was fun, and I liked it. But then, I got to be around 19, and I was like, I want to do something else. And that I loved movies. I loved going to the movies. I loved watching TV, and I love stories and I love characters. And people say they have vices. My vice is writing. I just love to write. I just will sit and write on my own, and I have thousands and thousands of pages that I've written that probably no one will ever see, but I do it for myself.
Welcome to the Find Your Influence podcast with Anton Guinea, where we unpack all things influence and we help leaders particularly find their influence by talking to amazing humans and finding out what influence means to them, who they've been influenced by, and who they have influenced. And this podcast episode, proudly sponsored by the Guinea Group of Companies. The Guinea Group helps leaders upgrade, upskill, uplift their teams and their influence. Welcome to the Find Your Influence podcast with Anton Guinea, where we tackle the big questions around influence. Who influenced you? Who did you influence? And it's a great topic. And, it's so broad, the topic of influence, and it means different things to different people. And today we've got an amazing human on. We've got Michele Kanan. Michele is a Los Angeles-based producer and writer known for developing and delivering independent and digital-first entertainment projects. I love that. With a current focus on the Emmy-recognized streaming series Studio City, which is available on Amazon Prime. She's also a long-running on-air personality as co-host of Kanan's Rules, a relationship and lifestyle show rooted in the realities of balancing family life, careers, and the pace of Hollywood. And Michele's also an author. Professionally, Michele serves as managing a member of CFO of Flip Creative, which is Michelle's been doing since 2008, combining creative leadership with business operations oversight across development, production, and brand execution. Her producing credits include Studio City, along with film work such as The Darkness of Man, To a Death Do Us Part, and coordination work on The Lost Holiday. Michele also notes prior projects including True Colours, I'm a Soap Star, and I think that might be it, reflecting consistent output in the serialized and web native format ecosystem. I'm not sure what that means, that last line. Sure. What have we forgotten in there, Michele Kanan?
Well, I just finished directing an action movie. It's totally out of my wheelhouse. And, when the project came to me, I thought, well, there's not many women directors that direct action. And I just, I had my husband cheering me on, and I just said, let's just do it. And it was amazing. It was a really amazing experience. It's at Berlin right now, and it'll be out soon.
And are you allowed to tell us the name of it yet, or is it top secret? Or
Sure. Yeah, no, it's called Body Man, and it stars Sean, of course. I love working with my husband. Yeah. And I have Tom Arnold, and I have Jonathan Sheck, and I have who else? David Chokachi, who just is on the new Baywatch now. Tommy Walker, who's going to be on the new reboot of what is it? Big Bang Theory.
Oh,
So
nice. Nice.
yeah, so we got a lot of great people in it,
Sure.
and it's a popcorn movie. So
Okay.
it was
Can't wait to see it. Now, how was it, just very, very quickly, how was it working with hubby and working with Sean and directing Sean? Is Sean good at taking directions?
So, we worked on this from start to finish. So we got pitched the idea, we wrote the script together, and then we produced it together, and then I directed him and went through post with him. So it was really, so we have 5 kids, and being pregnant is like having a directing a movie is like being pregnant and having a baby. You know, it really is your baby. But it was really great because doing this action movie, it was like being pregnant with my husband who was also pregnant because it was his baby too. So it was just really fun at every turn to look over and see him cheering me on. And you know, we had some really amazing moments on set, and I did have to pull out my husband knows karate on set one time, but other than that, it was an amazing experience.
Oh, it's so good. It's so beautiful. What a great story when you're just doing this thing, you're doing life together, and now you're doing this massive project together that's going to add value for us. We've got all get to experience it and watch it. And I'm an action movie tragic. My wife will tell you, I'm just a sucker for a good action movie. So congratulations.
Yay. Thank you. Well, this one's fun. It's really fun. It's you know, it's got a story to it, and you know, you just you strap in, and you know, we not just, you know, one of the things I really love about Sean is when I met him, I had 4 kids, and he knew. You know, he just was like, we're doing this. We're going to be together. And then all of a sudden, I was like, hey, you know, I have 4 kids. And he's like, yeah, I know. And I thought he's either a serial killer and going to murder us all, or he's going to be amazing.
Or a caring human who loves me and is going to love my kids.
Yeah. And so the jury's still out. It's been 15 years, but
I'm sure it's not. I'm sure you wait. Oh, that's funny, Michelle. So for everyone that doesn't know, we had Sean on probably a week or two ago. Sean is a movie star, really, I guess, from even long time ago, but even more recently around some of our daytime shows that we watch. And Sean's amazing. Sean was in Karate Kid 3 back in the day, but you know, I think Sean's moved way past that now. But I think that's probably part of Sean's like karate and Karate Kid.
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Like it really, you know, has colored and influenced a lot of his life, and definitely our book. And that was how we came up with the title, because, you know, he really got his act together. And, you know, a lot of men in their 50s go through menopause and have a midlife crisis, and, you know, they kind of flounder a little bit. And Sean decided to do it just like he does everything else, very publicly. And he wrote it in a book and said, you know, I'm not an expert, but, you know, if I can do it, anybody can, and put it in a book. And so it had a lot of success. He helped a lot of people. It's really like one of the things I really find so amazing is that people continue to come up to me and tell me how he changed their lives and how they've inspired him. And, you know, when I first met him, he, you know, obviously I knew he was, you know, a big deal and people knew him, and, you know, he, you know, had fans, but I didn't realize how that his fans loved him more than just for his acting. They really wanted to emulate him, and they really found great comfort and wisdom in his words and in his experiences. And so it's been really amazing to watch that. And at one point I kind of looked around and I was like, wow, I'm, you know, been his sidekick for a while, and he's really inspired me and, you know, pushed me to be better and do something. So with this new movie, Body Man, you know, it was him on the sidelines cheering me on and telling me, you can do this. So, yeah, it's been this fantastic partnership. Sorry, my dog is working hard. Of course, you can't forget her.
We got a couple that kick around and come and share the office with us as well. Thank you. And is that your 6th child, the fur baby?
Yes, she is.
Good. A human in a dog's body, as we say over here, Michele Kanan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she just went on a long trip with me. Sean and I love going to Italy, and I'm Italian, and you know, one of my dreams was to follow my ancestors' footsteps of when they left Italy and came to the United States and kind of, go to Italy and have a triumphant return. And this summer, Sean, out of the blue, was like, "Hey, the series that you wrote?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, I wrote a series called Bloodhound, and we filmed for 7 days, and Sean starred in it, and it aired on Pop TV, and in 2024. Yeah, 2024. And so last year, Sean said, "Hey, I pitched it in Italy, and, I have a crew. Let's do this." And so we shot. That was my dream, to shoot in Italy. So we went to Italy and we shot in this amazing little town. And I was standing there on my set, seeing my whole crew, seeing my vision coming to life, and just looking at him, marveling, and thought, how can this moment get any better? And it just, I got some really, like, in this moment of just amazingness, I got some terrible news. One of my dear, dear friends, who is one of the stars of Studio City, passed away. And his name is Tristan Rogers. And his wife is like my sister, and I just love them. And I found out in that moment, and he was like a huge, huge support to me. And he was instrumental. And, everyone says, "Oh, I know that look. She's coming up with something." And Tristan was just like, "Yeah, let's do it." He was Australian, and he just was full of life and just was ready to do anything. And he would cheer me on. And in that moment, I saw how can I do this? Like, this is so hard. And I had to choke that in. And all of a sudden, the church bells rang out of nowhere. It wasn't even time. And they just rang out of nowhere. And I was just like, wow, this is just amazing. And I looked over at Sean, and he looked over at me, and he just went, he did this, his thing. And he just knew what I was thinking. And I thought, how lucky am I that I'm living my dream, and he made it possible, and he knows exactly what I'm thinking right now, and just doesn't want to feed into it and embarrass me and make me cry, because we both were sad. But he just, was like, "Keep your chin up. This is your dream. You can cry when you're done with this." And I was like, wow, how can you get a better partner?
Oh, you got a life partner and you got a professional partner, and you support each other in all aspects of the wheel of life for both of you. That's just so powerful, so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing, and condolences too on Tristan. And I hope you and Tristan's wife were able to, support each other through that. So,
yeah.
And thank you for sharing such a personal story. That's unbelievable. We don't get many people on, Michele, that just say, I'm just living my dream. I've had this moment. I've been touched by some divine inspiration. That's, mind you, we don't get many Hollywood movie directors on either.
Aw. Well, I'll tell everybody to come on.
Could you please? I'd love to have.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That would be super. Before we talk about future guests, let's talk about your past influences. Who got you into the movie industry? Who, where did it all start for you? Who was the biggest influence on your life back in the early days, Michele?
Wow. Well, I actually started as an actress when I was a kid. And yeah, and so I was modeling and acting, and it was fun, and I liked it. But then, I got to be around 19, and I was like, I want to do something else. And I was always really inspired by the inner workings of it. And to be honest, I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I like to be in charge. So I was on set one day, and we were doing an industrial film, which is like an instructional video for how to buckle a seatbelt properly. And so it was like take 47. And I was like, "Hey, I think if," and they're like, "Wait, she's thinking, call her agent," and fired me. And so I was like so angry, and I stormed off, and I was like, "I will never do this again." And so I did a complete 180, and I went into medicine. And I married a doctor, and I was in medicine for 20 years and, running my ex-husband's clinic, and, just thought, this is my life now, and had the kids. And that was, I was a carpool mom, and I was like, this is my thing. And then one day, somebody asked me to do, we'd always discussed films. I loved movies. I loved going to the movies. I loved watching TV, and I love stories, and I love characters. And I have a really, people say they have vices. My vice is writing. I just love to write. I just will sit and write on my own, and I will, I have thousands and thousands of pages that I've written that probably no one will ever see, but I do it for myself. And and one day my city said, "Hey, let's do a film festival." And I said, "Sure, I'll help out." And so I sat, and during the meeting they were saying, "Hey, what's your superpower?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. My superpower would be, like, I guess, raising money. I don't know. Like, I'm a fundraiser. That's what I do." And so one of the filmmakers said, "Well, yeah, you could raise some for me." And so I did, like, in a week. And next thing I know, I started getting scripts left and right. People were like, "Wow, you're funding films. You're raising money. How do you do this?" And that's kind of how I got started. And so I did one movie, and then I did another. And, of course, when you're the executive producer and you're like doing finance, they have a chair for you and you sit down. And I was like, "So, like, when do I get to do the good stuff? And, like, what do I do?" And they're like, "Well, you could get coffee if you wanted." And so I was like, "Okay." So I got coffee, and I was like, "Okay, now what?" And they're like, "Well, you just sit there and watch." And I thought, I don't want to be sitting here. I don't want to be an ornament. I want to do this. And so I bought a red camera, one of the first ones, and grabbed my son, who was 14 at the time, and I was like, "Learn how to use this. Like, figure it out. Learn how to use this." It was a really expensive camera, and I was like, "Here, figure this out." And so he was like, "Okay." And so I got him hooked in. I got my daughter hooked in, doing, they wanted to be actresses, and I was like, "Great, let's just start filming stuff." And so next thing I know, I'm on another set, and now I got moved up, and I got to be in the PA department, which means, like, you're the lowest on the set. And I thought, wow, I really made it. I get to be a PA. But it was great because I got to learn all about sets, hands on, with no filters and nobody saying, "Oh, don't tell her that." And I got to learn the ins and outs of it because I was like low man on the set. And what a great education. And then, and I also gained a lot of favors from that, which the industry is all about favors. And since then, I've made 7 features, 8 features, and 3 TV shows.
Michele Kanan, off tap. You have 7 feature films, and then 3.
Yeah.
What did you say the 3 were?
TV shows.
3 TV shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, adding so much value, that's a huge body of work. That's you learnt from the bottom, and you would have had to learn from some great leaders, though, Michele. Like, can you look back on anyone in the industry and go, I'm so glad I met them along the way? Like, is there someone that's been instrumental?
Sure. Let's see. Well, Tristan taught me a lot. I mean, he was amazing. He used to tell me so many, like, stories, and he told me that he was Robert Scorpio on General Hospital. And he was arguably, like, one of the most famous men in the world at one point in the 80s. And he was in Australia, and he had done some soaps in Australia. And he told me that he got offered Mad Max. And yeah. And yeah.
What were you thinking?
And he was thinking about it, and they couldn't get it together. They said maybe, and he got the offer to be Robert Scorpio on General Hospital, and he took it. and left. And then, of course, it went to Mel Gibson. But, he's had an amazing career. He was Robert Scorpio for 45 years. And then he was, he was the voice of Outback for a while. And he also, I convinced him, more like blackmailed him into doing Studio City. It was just it was in 2019 when, Netflix was still mailing DVDs out and it wasn't the juggernaut that it is now. And I said, listen, we should do indie TV. Like there's this streaming thing, and everyone thought I was crazy. And so I said, look, should we do this? And he's like, no, this is crazy. This is, like indie TV. You just don't do that. It's not done. You go pitch a network and have the network pay for it. And I was like, okay, but what if we win an Emmy? And he's like, you sound crazy. That's not going to happen. That's not how this works. And I was like, but what if it did? And he said, okay. He's like, fine. I'll do it for you. Let's see. And he goes, in 45 years, I've never even been nominated for an Emmy, even though I've been on TV for 45 years. I've never even been nominated once. And I'm like, I promise on my show, you're going to do it. And he said, okay. And so we filmed, we submitted, we got 8 nominations, including Best Supporting Actor for Tristan. And that was the year that we won. So he got his first nomination and his first win on my show. So that was really special to me. And he, has always encouraged me. And, I hate to sound corny, but my husband has been a really huge influence on me. Like to see the ups and downs in his careers and the, the way, I just think he's a Renaissance man. He keeps reinventing himself, and his drive is like no one else I've ever seen. I thought I was busy and I drove, but he pushes me more than, I pull him.
So, Michele, this is a perfect time, and I've got my lovely wife who's been just waiting. Come on, baby. Even my lovely wife of 30 years who's been waiting in the background.
Hi. Oh my gosh, I love that. Hi, so nice to meet you.
Michele was just talking about how much of an influence Sean was, and we're going to talk about Michelle's book, but wondered whether you and Michele could connect on something. You don't work in my business, but I guess you're my life partner, and what?
Oh, well, I do the unpaid, unglamorous paperwork out the back that I keep asking what payday is, but he keeps telling me, soon. You say,
Aww. I understand that. Sean, I say that he said, I'm the most highest paid manager. And he goes, because you get half instead of 20%. And I was like, half? I'm doing a lot of the work. I do all the unglamorous paperwork in the background too.
And it's tax time or whatever, and you got to pull everything together. Yeah, that was my days off, was doing tax. That's why I kept saying, when's payday? When do I get paid? Show me the pay.
Exactly. Well, you just have to get crafty and start figuring out other things that you can do to kind of follow your dream a little bit. For me, I was really good. As women, I think that we are very happy to be supportive and to help and to nurture relationships along. And, it takes a really strong partner to look at his wife and say, hey, listen, what are you doing? What are you doing for yourself? What are you going to, what gets you out of bed in the morning? I can't imagine that you wake up going, gosh, I hope there's so much more paperwork. I just can't wait to get it all done. I think he's
Learn straight away.
So for me, to put Michele in the picture, you were lucky enough, and I hope I'm supportive of your dreams as well.
Yeah.
You were lucky enough to spend a little bit of your career as a teacher, living your passion, and now you're doing train, Michele.
Yeah. So,
I love that. What did you teach?
Primary school, which is your equivalent to, you have elementary and then right up to grade 7. So I taught prep right up to grade 7. Was our primary school, and now it's prep to grade 6. So I taught that for 20 years. So, and then decided I was a bit disillusioned. So I saw an ad for a train driver, and I thought, I could do that. So I put in for it and, started a new career at 53 driving coal trains. So, that's
Wow.
and, 13,000 tons controlled by 3 levers. So, yeah, so that's right. And I
That's
say to
really cool.
I say to people, oh, I loved being a teacher and I do miss teaching. This is just more money and far less stress than teaching is. So it's a lot easier.
Yeah, teachers have a halo.
Yeah.
Oh, you should have. I agree, Michelle. So Michelle and I are about to talk about Michelle's book in the way of the Cobra couple, which I love.
Yeah.
For you, as a long term, 31 years, we're as happy as all get out. Probably never been happier.
Yeah.
What would you say if you're going to write a book about Cobra couples? What would you say? If you've learnt over 31 years as well.
Patience and a lot of it. Anton always says, oh, how lucky you are or patient. What is it
So
saying?
I'm lucky you're patient.
Yeah, he says, I'm lucky. Jules is very patient. I'm like, I'm very patient. So I would say patience. And also, like, I've probably never been the big picture idea person that Anton has always been. Like, he is the, stratospheric ideas man who's going to, this is unreal. What do you reckon about this? And I'm like, So I'm the probably the leveler a little bit, but I've never wanted to stop him doing what he wanted to do. So if he wanted to go and try X, Y, Z, I'm like, I'll fill your boots. So I've always tried to be very supportive in that way. Sometimes it hasn't always been the best decision, but sometimes, you've just got to go with and give the support. So, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you only live once, so you've got to, really, it's important to have somebody that pushes you and follows you on your dreams. And, that's the key to a great marriage is to, keep dreaming. Patience, yeah, it helps, but the dreams are what carry you because you have to keep going towards a goal. And it's a lot like Sean and I.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that beautiful? Baby cake, you're amazing.
Is that it?
Well,
One question.
unless you want to stay.
No, that's good. I've got to go and get ready for work. I'm waiting for my phone call to say, hurry up, get ready for work. So they give me a 1 hour. Yeah, they give you a 1 hour wake up call to say, hurry up, you've got an hour to get here kind of thing. So, yeah. Lovely to meet you, Michelle. Thank you for...
Lovely to meet you too. Yeah. Well, thanks for calling the call.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for bringing Jules on. Jules is waiting. I thought, there's got to be a perfect time for us all four to connect because you're so, grateful to have Sean in your life. Sean's so grateful to have you in your life, he's told me, which is really special. And I think I'm really lucky to have Jules and I hope you didn't mind me doing that. I just wanted to share, Jules.
No, I love it.
I
love it. That's amazing.
So now we were talking about sort of Sean being a great influence. And I think between the two of you, you've done some great work personally and professionally. Let's talk about, I guess, what it means to be in a great relationship. Is that all right, Michelle? Let's talk about your book. You've recently brought out a book, The Cobra Couples. I've sort of dog-eared some pages in there. But for you and for our listeners, and I guess under the theme of influence, how do you be a great influence on your partner, or how do you let your partner influence you in sort of a relationship context? Please, Michelle.
I think it's important to get to know each other, and in the book we have a lot about communication. Like communication was almost the whole book, and I had to scale it back a little bit. But once you can communicate effectively with your partner, like the relationship, I think a lot of the burden is taken off because you can talk and people can talk to each other, but if they're not understanding and they're not, communicating where I say something and you receive what I've said instead of I say something and you receive something else. So I think that's the first part of a relationship, and that's like the key. Once you get that down, then you have to make plans together and, realize it's a partnership. It's not, one person dragging another person along. And so, I love what your wife said about, how she supports you and follows your dreams, and, she wants you to, she wants to be there for you. And that's what it's about, is, really showing up for somebody and having them show up for you.
Communication, partnership. And I love what you said to Jules, Michelle, where you said, you've got to have a shared goal. You said something like that, and it really resonated, so that you're both heading in the same direction. Is that sort of personally and professionally, or is it, either or both maybe?
I mean, I think that a relationship, if you have professional goals together, that's great. But, a relationship is, you need to have personal things that are personal to you. Otherwise, it's just a friendship. So, one of the things that you really have to focus on, that we talk about in the book, is romance, and you have to have you have to commit to romance, because, life gets in the way, and, time marches on, and next thing you know, you look up and, you're roommates. And, that's what happens to a lot of marriages. And for us, if we keep it interesting, we, keep each other in the forefront of our minds. We, they say that relationships are work. Well, the work is staying in it, being in it, showing up each day, throwing your jersey on and saying, okay, today, you're going to be my partner, and, this is going to be the great love and romance of my life, instead of just like, hey, buddy, like, great, the dishes are done, or hey, buddy, the bills are paid, or, hey, buddy, thanks for making the bed. That's not enough. That's a friendship. So you've got to, show up and like know your partner's heart, and, grab them by the heart and say, okay, this is what we're doing.
Every day, grab your partner by the heart. Michele Kanan, that's beautiful, because that's really special. I love that. And, you got me thinking, how can I do that for Jules, of course? What are some of the ways that you can, actually, what a question. What are some of the ways that you do grab Sean by the heart, or that Sean grabs you by the heart, Michelle? How do you keep it real, and how do you keep that romance alive, and how do you keep that love alive?
So we say that romance begins in the morning. So that means when you wake up, it's not like, like this whole date night thing. It's, it's okay, but it's not about a scheduled planned time. It's about you need to connect with your partner in a real way every day. And it needs to be a build. You need to, in the morning, when whoever wakes up first makes coffee. And, Sean has learned how to make me coffee, and how I like it. And he brings it, and he knows that if he starts discussing any type of business before I have coffee, he dies. So, like, I think fear is healthy in a relationship too.
You're karate human.
Right. And, and I think that there's, through the rest of the day, we stay in touch with each other. We will hold hands, or we'll, hug each other, or we'll talk about things through the day, or we'll make romantic plans. Like, you don't always have to be talking about, like, how are we going to, build our dream home, or what kind of car are we going to get, or where are the kids going to go to school. You have to talk about, things, you have to discuss poetry, as it were. If we're watching this show that's really like set back in the medieval times, and they talk about poetry and everything, and all of a sudden Sean was like, well, I tell you poetry all the time. I write poetry for you all the time. And I was like, oh, he does. He really does. He writes a lot of poetry for me. And I was like, you know what? It's true. That's very romantic. I appreciate it. And so, I read some of his poetry before doing this interview, and I just, I put it up on the wall so I can show him that I appreciate his poetry.
That is so cool. Oh, thank you for sharing. Here's this tough guy, this movie star, and he's writing poetry to demonstrate, this love that he has for you, and the care and the the appreciation probably that he has that you're walking side by side through life with him. That is
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's romance, isn't it?
And one of the other things is that, you know, a lot of times you get into a relationship and it becomes a little adversarial, where I did this, so you have to do that, or I did this stuff, or I'm doing this. And, you know, sometimes one partner works harder and the other one comes along, and other times the other one does. And it's about trust and it's about respect. And as long as you respect each other and you show gratitude that, you know, you realize you're the one being pulled along, then it doesn't make it a heavy burden. So I think that you know, a lot of it is realizing that your partner is a person and they have wants and needs. And, you know, I have this thing that I call catch him being good. So a lot of women like to go, oh, my husband does this, he's so terrible. And my husband does that, and he's so terrible. And they kind of bond over this, like, you know, my husband's a shit. And for me, I never talk about my husband negatively. I talk about him positively, like he's the best person in the world, because he is the best person in the world for me. And so if I don't believe it, no one else will. And you know, when you know, there's the fake it till you make it. When you say it, there's a quote. I think it's Sun Tzu that says, be careful of your words because they become actions. Or be careful of your thoughts because they become words. Be careful of your words because they become actions. And so if you think it and you say it, it becomes it. And so, you know, I have a husband who, you know, is exactly who I want him to be because I talk about who I want him to be all the time. And, you know, I let him know the things that make me happy, because in the book, there's a huge chapter that says, I'm not a mind reader. So, yeah, you have to tell your partner.
That's right.
You know,
Because-
comfortable to be.
Because you've got to know who is my partner. They're not mind readers.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And team, I'm just going to read a quote from Michelle's book around that part of the book. You can never really know someone completely. That's why it's the most terrifying thing in the world, really, taking someone on faith, hoping they'll take you on faith too. There's such a precarious balance. It's a wonder that we do it all at all, from Libba Bray. And I love that quote, because if relationships are hard until we do get to know each other and we really know each other at a deeper level, and we're willing to share out who we are at a deeper level too.
Exactly. And I think that, like, every relationship, every partner has their deep, dark, hidden secret. And they have this thing that they feel like it's like a sweater with a loose thread. And I feel like there's that thread that if you pull on that thread, the sweater unravels. So this secret is part of that. And so, you know, one of the tricks is to get to know your partner's deep, dark, hidden secret and let them know that it's not that bad and you don't care about the secret.
And not only that, Michelle, I think what's really important about what you just said then is that when your partner tells you that stuff, you know, they're telling you that in confidence. They're so vulnerable in that moment. And, you know, they trust you not to share that with anyone. And I know, you know, and the great partners don't. And that's why you use the words trust, respect, and gratitude, you know. And
Right.
I want to share something with you that I spoke at a men's night recently, because they wanted to know about mental health and, you know, how to you know, be a better man for other men, because men don't share their feelings. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And so I did that talk. And I asked this group of men why they don't share their feelings and they share their deepest, darkest secrets with their friends, because we don't trust what they will do with that information, because I can't trust my mates. And that really landed for me. And I think, you know, people like you and Sean, Jules and I, we can tell each other really deep and dark stuff because we trust that our partner will care for us and care for that information. And I think that's really
For sure. Yeah, I'm always reminded did you ever see the movie Wolverine with you know, the X-Men with yeah, and remember he has the brother, and, you know, they're trying to kill each other, and then all of a sudden they're like back to back, and they're, you know, they're on both sides, you know, and that's really what a relationship should be. And, like, literally Sean and I are constantly like, we have each other's backs like that. And, there's this really great thing I learned the other day that in the Chinese language, there's many different words for trust. So there's like the trust between like a parent, there's a trust between friends, there's a trust between acquaintances, but there's one word for trust, and I'm probably butchering this to death, but there's one word for trust that only is like trust through experience. So you can't just like get that. It's not like handed to you. It's like you get it over time. And so you have to aspire to that. And I think that's in long-term relationships. That's one of the benefits and the bonuses. And I think people lose sight of that. And they feel that this trust, they find it to be like a warm blanket. And they kind of like drift along like, yeah, okay, she's not going anywhere. It's fine. And they fall asleep at the wheel. But even when you're driving in the desert, if you fall asleep at the wheel, your car is going to blow off the right road, and you may be doing circles in the desert for hours asleep. So you need to stay awake. You need to drive the car, and you need to drive it towards a destination. And that destination is we're building something. We're going to be that couple that's 100 years old holding hands, going on vacation together, or, slipping through straws or something, have an image of who you guys are going to be together. And, it'll always come back to that. And, don't look to find the bad, and don't look to be a victim. Look to find the good. And, because either way, you're going to find it. So all things being equal, would you rather, sell newspapers or be happy?
Beautifully put. And you started all of that off and you finished it with the same content or context. Catch him being good or catch her being good, catch them being good.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Look for the positives and just be grateful for who they are, because
exactly.
Some days we're not the best version of ourselves, and, our beautiful our beautiful spouses aren't. And I think there's some forgiveness on those days too, and being grateful for our imperfections and theirs as well. Jeepers.
Yeah. And I think another thing is that, we all have imperfections, and we can all get a little touch of the emperor's new clothes and think that, we're perfect, and, nothing they do is right, and everything we do is right. And, my favorite thing in the world is when I realize that, I could be better, and that I find something that I have to learn, or something that I have to, grow and evolve with. And it's especially gratifying when my husband figures it out, because, there's a lot of things that I do better, but there's also a lot of things that he does better. And, when you just keep that in mind, as long as you have that, you'll maintain the respect and the dignity in the relationship.
And you'll just remember to love the little things about each other as well, Jeepers creepers. Talking about that, there's a great quote in here from Robin Williams, and I won't be able to find it in a hurry, but I think it was about Blue Belt. You had some quote about, and Robin Williams made it, but no, I can't find it, of course, when I need it. But it reminds me of the movie Good Will Hunting. Have you seen that one, Michelle? And I love it when Robin Williams was explaining to Matt Damon, those two characters, how, when Robin's wife passed, and it was in that moment where Matt Damon said, do you wish you could go back in time and not meet her because of all the pain and suffering that watching your wife die of cancer? And he said, he got really pissed off because he said, I had all those good years just for a few bad ones at the end, and that was worth it. And he said, I miss all the little things, I miss the fart in bed, or I miss the cough, or I miss just the little things that she used to say. And I think, it's some of those little things that make life pretty special too, don't they? The imperfections, as you said. And yes, we learn and we can grow and develop, but sometimes those little imperfections are those little things that make us all unique.
True. Very true. And, definitely savor every moment, because you just never know when it's going to be your last.
Mortality motivation, Michele Kanan, it can all end very, very quickly. Michelle, can I ask you a question? We do a lot of work with leaders, so leaders are our thing. At the moment we're teaching leaders to use AI to be better leaders and to sort of humanize this intelligence process and even just to build better teams in whatever way that looks like. You've been a director. You've got to you have to like influence people to do stuff and to create this persona, to be in character. What does leadership mean to you, Michelle? How do you, what's a director skill, for example? Pretty please.
So for me, leadership, is not about telling people what to do or getting people to do things. Leadership is about inspiring people to follow you. So what I try to do is be a very good example, and I will never ask anybody to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. And if I don't understand what, or there's something that's really, really hard, I will stop and get my subordinates to understand the importance of what they're doing and why that I need it and that they're part of a team. And for me, I think that a team is only as strong as its weakest teammate. And nobody is more important on a set than anybody else. I mean, they're definitely like sets. I don't know if you know this, but sets are run kind of like a military, like they have military precision where there's, the directors, the general, and then everybody goes down and everybody has their role. And so there's like a chain of command. So in that chain of command, though, arguably you would think, well, the general is the most important one because, everybody else is replaceable. Well, sure, but the general is only as good as the people following the general because, you can have the best plan, but if you don't have people willing to execute it, or you don't even have people that understand it or that believe in it, then you're not going to get anywhere. And we have this chapter in the book called Dead Right. So you can be dead right, and dead right means that you are so correct, everybody around you is dead wrong, and they don't care because they're all dead. So you can sit there and bask in the glory of your rightness all alone because no one cares anymore except you. So you can be right or you can be happy. So you have to always choose happy. And, with leadership, it's the same kind of thing. You have to make sure that everybody that you are with and everybody you need to follow you understands exactly what they're following, understands the mission, and not only understands it, but agrees with it and says, yes, I agree. Yes, I can see I want to go to this side of the mountain and I'm willing to climb it with you because I believe you can get me there. So, and also I love training and inspiring. So even though I'm directing, I had a first AD, which is the first assistant director, and he's a kid, and he told me he's in film school and he's getting ready to do his film and everything, and he's been saving money to make his film. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Hey, if I can help you out, what can I do? And he's like, can you give me money? And I was like, no, but if you need me to come and work on your set, I will. And, because you're here. And so I, offered that type of help. And then towards the end of the shoot, there's always emergencies on set. It's like firemen running around with hoses, always putting out some fire. And so I realized I could either push this off or I could deal with it in the moment. And so I went to my first AD and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to deal with this right now because I'm going to put my producer hat on. I need you as my first assistant to go direct this piece. He's like, really? And I was like, go run rehearsal, get it ready to go. And, I'll be there when I can. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, see how it feels. You want to be a director? Try the shoes on. Let's see. Let's go. So he was like, okay. So he went, and I knew it was going to be a really complicated scene. And I knew that there was still some lighting issues to work out. So I was like, let him figure it out. So he went out and he went and he kind of got it all organized and got a plan going. And so I walked in and he was, they were filming and, they filmed a take of it and it just crumbled and just like disintegrated. And everybody was like, I don't understand, like this, you didn't get this. And he's like, and he started to get upset. And I was like, oh, good thing I'm here. And so I was like, okay. And he's like, well, there. And I'm like, okay. And he was like, but, and I was like, so I was like, it's okay. I got this. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do that. Whatever. So I had to change a lot of things. We shot the scene how I wanted it shot. And, at the end of it, and then the day was over and he came up to me and he's like, and I said, so how is your experience? Not as easy as it looks, is it? And he's like, no. And I said, yeah, it's tough. And I said, look, it's okay. I mean, it's unfair for me to just throw you into it. But, I figured, it's better than everybody sitting around while I dealt with this. And he's like, yeah. And I said, but was there anything positive? Like, did you get anything? And he's like, well, he goes, how come you didn't just like walk in and like tell everybody, like, whatever? And I said, because I didn't want to embarrass you. Like, I'm not trying to embarrass you. Like, I want you to learn. I want you to have the experience. And he's like, well, why didn't you just tell everybody you were just killing time? And I said, because, everybody deserves to follow their dream and to have a glimpse of it. And if I can do that for anybody, I'm going to do it. So we had a minute. I knew I could get the shot in, the amount of time that I had left. So I figured let's see what you could do. And he was like, wow, like they don't do that in school. And I said, no, they don't. That's why when you work with somebody, you should continue to work with them. And now one day you're going to be in the chair and you're going to have some young kid who's going to want to, and remember this, pay it forward, like teach that kid. Don't take that moment to kill his dreams. Because like a lot of times people, they get tired and they have egos and they just kind of say things without thinking about how it affects people. And, if you can say something to somebody to inspire them in a moment where they're open to listening, you're probably opening the door for them to do something great. But if you shut them down and shut them up in a moment when they're open to listen, you're probably closing the door and changing the trajectory of their life where they just won't listen to people anymore.
Wow. That don't embarrass people when they make a mistake. Help them. Pay it forward by giving your time, your talent, and sharing with them what you've learned and letting them learn as well along the way. And let them live their dream and know dreams don't come easy, Michele.
Mhm.
There is
Yeah.
some clunky bits along the way.
For sure. For sure.
A person's
It's also,
lucky to have you, Michele. Good on you. Congrats. That's beautiful leadership.
well, there's also, as a leader, I think you learn a lot from the people following you because, when you're in a leadership position, it's, it tends to get very lonely at the top and you look around and you don't have a lot of peers to be able to bounce things off of. So one of the best ways is to look in the mirror, and the mirror is the people following you because they see you. They see exactly who you are and what you're doing. And if you can, pick their brains about you, like, what great feedback. So you have to be open and humble and be able to listen to people and give them an opportunity to explain what is working for you and what's not working for you.
Wow. You've inspired me to ask my team that now, next week. What's working for you? What do I need to change? What do I need to do differently? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Michele Kanan, I wish we could just keep going. I know I'm going to value your time. You gave us an hour. I'm just so, thank you so very much. Team, you have just heard, I think, just such an amazing conversation about relationships, about influence, about leadership. And, Michele has just summed up, I guess, in an hour what it means to be a great, I guess, in a great relationship where you both support each other. And I think Michele talked beautifully about Sean. And if you listen to Sean would talk beautifully about Michele. And I think, these relationships that we're in are just they take work. And they do take a bit of effort, and they take understanding each other. And I think Michele talked about that. And then understanding that we all got imperfections too, and that's okay as well. But Michelle then transitioned into in relationships. There's 3 words that I wrote down: trust, respect, and gratitude. And I think, they're the 3 words that I think would make any relationship work if you had those 3. And I think what Michelle said too is that they're not one moment thing. They've developed over time. And then finally, Michelle talked about leadership, and I cannot wait to share this podcast with a lot of leaders in my space, because there's so many leaders in my space that could, understand that people need to learn on their own. They need to go through this journey. Don't embarrass people. Don't belittle people. Don't put people down. To, lift them up as best you can and give them the opportunity to shine, and let people know that they can follow their dreams, but at the same time, there's going to be some hurdles. So I am just so grateful. We have now spoken on this podcast to our first movie director, all the way from Hollywood. And you're an amazing human, Michelle. Thank you for listening or viewing our Find Your Influence podcast with Anton Guinea. Another great chat. Please be one of the 10% of people who follow and subscribe and like our videos, so that you can get more of them and you can hear more of our amazing conversations, the conversations that I get to have and that I get to share.